edition of Bunker Office Hours, a weekly live show brought to you by the team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to helping our community start and grow their own businesses. I'm your host, the one and only Iron Mike Steadman, coming to you from the beautiful brick city of Newark, New Jersey, joined by my co-host, Amy Morrison, and our guest today, Jim O'Farrell from Advanced Management Strategies Group and a Bunker Labs CEOcircle alumni. Did I get that right? Are you alumni or are you still in it?
I'm in my second cohort. They're calling us retreads.
Yeah, y'all keep doubling up. It's hard to keep track.
Doing it again.
I know. I just had Chris Anthony on the Transition Podcast. I know he's a double upper. So it sounds like y'all are getting a lot of value out of CEOcircle.
Definitely. 100%. Great program.
So before Jim and I talk about employee engagement and the importance of veterans volunteering in their community and serving on nonprofit boards, I want to go ahead and pass it over to my co-host, Amy Morrison, to talk about any updates that are taking place in the bunker.
Thanks, Mike. So this week, we've extended the application for veterans and residents applications. So that is now open through April 10th. So you can check out bunkerlabs.org/VIR to apply to veterans and residents. And then also applications are open for Breaking Barriers in Entrepreneurship program, which starts in May. So that is for early stage Black, Asian, female, and Hispanic business owners. And that is a virtual workshop. It's about 8 weeks, I think. So applications are open for that. And then no new blog posts this week, but I did want to shout out the blog just generally. There's been some good articles lately. So we've got our female veteran and military spouse business owners you should follow. We've got a little 101 on what happened with the Silicon Valley Bank failure. We've got some awesome spotlights, and you can check out just who's been in our cohorts recently. So I just think that you should check out bunkerlabs.org/blog for some awesome resources. And there's still the calendar in there of pitch competitions and conferences for the year, which we're going to continue to update that all year long.
Listen, make sure at the very least you check out that blog on upcoming pitch competitions and grant opportunities. I know a lot of y'all are undercapitalized, right? And we've compiled just such an amazing list. I can't tell you how many people I've sent that thing out to. Keeps doing a great job on the back end to organize this content, but we got to get the word out. And if you're not plugged into one of our programs, you're missing out, right? This is your community. We got a lot of opportunity out there available, but help us spread the word. If you're not a good fit right now, we need more veterans and military spouses participating in these programs. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Jack, welcome. Lucas, welcome. I'm going to answer your question at the end. But if you're in the chat, go ahead and drop a note. Let us know where you're dialing in from today. And as I chop it up with Jim, please don't be afraid to ask any questions. So without further ado, Jim, fellow Naval Academy grad from the class of 89.
89.
I was joking with him before we went live. I was like, because at the Naval Academy, we all have our plebe summer blockbuster movies, right? Mine was Pirates of the Caribbean. Jim was 89, so I was assuming it was like Stripes or something. Definitely before Pretty Woman, because I think that came out in like 1991. So
I'm trying to Google it real quick right now while I should have done that before. 89 movies. First of all, Iron Mike, thank you for having me on today. Coming from the same school, some similar background, it kind of set me on a path, right? But I was a native Annapolitan. I grew up in Annapolis. I was a newspaper boy when I was 8 years old. And I used to steal the business section out of the newspaper. And I got caught a couple times by the district manager. But the reason I did that was my passion was business. I knew someday I was going to have my own company and I was going to be working with people. And I actually, in my brain, my little 8-year-old, 12-year-old brain would say, I'll be in charge. I'll be the boss. I wanted to be the boss. And one of the things I've learned over the years is it's really not about me. It's about my people. And I'm a big fan of this phrase, take all the blame and give all the credit. So I do that all the time. I'm constantly taking blame and then giving away the credit. So I'm really glad you had me on today. It's nice to be here.
I don't know what it is about being a newspaper boy, but that seems like some really good entrepreneurial training, because I keep reading about all these successful entrepreneurs that ran a paper route of some sort.
Yeah. Imagine having to go to people's doors and collect their money from them. I mean, literally walk up to the door, bang on the door. You're 8, 10, 12 years old, and you're trying to get money out of people. I mean, it was quite a learning experience.
You learn sales the old school way. So that's great. So
Absolutely.
now you run 180 plus government contracting firm.
Yeah.
You're leaning in. So clearly you manifested that dream for yourself. What did you do in the military? And then bring us up to speed on, employee engagement, because I know that's something that energizes you and your team.
Yeah, so I actually went to Virginia Tech and I flunked out miserably, and came back home, and I said, my dad said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I don't really know." And he said, "Well, basically, you need to find something that's going to keep you gainfully employed. You might try enlisting in the Navy." So I took his advice. I enlisted in the Navy, ended up in Assault Craft Unit 2. I was putting Marines on the beach in an old Mike 8 boat. If for those who are younger and don't remember, like if you picture like the Normandy invasion in World War II and putting the boat right up on the beach, the bow ramp comes down, the Marines run off. And that's what I was doing. And then I applied to the Naval Academy. And in one of those days that changed my life, I got a call from the Naval Academy admissions office at Chief Clunk. And Chief Clunk said, "Hey, we're going to recommend you for the Naval Academy Prep School." And by now I was already 2 years out of high school. And I thought my life was coming, I was so far behind all my peers and everything else. And I said, "Yeah, I don't know, Chief." My dad he couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth because he was standing in the kitchen. I said, "I don't know if I can do that." And he said, "Well, hold on." And it was like Charlie Brown's parents, like, wah, 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 wah. And then he comes back on, he goes, "I'm going to recommend you for direct admission." So that's how I got into the Naval Academy. I survived the Naval Academy. It was a rough go. I was not an engineer. I was a poli-sci major, and they made us take all these engineering classes. And graduated, went down to Pensacola to fly jets, because I think the movie in my era was Top Gun, the original Top Gun, and so everybody wanted to be Tom Cruise, only taller. And so I got down there and I kept flipping the aircraft upside down at the most inopportune moments, like really close to the ground while trying to land. And I ended up leaving flight school and ended up in Supply Corps. And I had a blast there, spent a tour on Diego Garcia in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and ran the ship store. It was like a mini Walmart. And got to go on shopping excursions to Japan and Singapore. And that was when I really started thinking, wow, business. I need to get back to my business roots. Got my MBA at night, got out of the Navy, and I ended up at KPMG Consulting and several other larges. And then fast forward early 2000s, right around 9/11, a Naval Academy classmate named Jim Clautis calls me up. "Hey, you want to join? You want to be employee number 3 of this little startup that we're doing?" And I was there. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm quitting today. When can I start? What's the pay? I don't really care. I don't care if I don't get paid." I needed to get out of the big bureaucracy and into the small. And that's really been the story of my life ever since, is getting involved in startups. And then AMSG, growing AMSG, my former business partner, retired Marine named Mike McCormick, he kind of taught me a lot of things. One of the things that he gave me that I keep on my desk right here is this little guy. Yeah. When we turned over and I became the CEO.
Relax, calm down now. Don't stress.
I need one of those.
Yeah. So a couple of SEALs buddies of mine have told me over the years, calm is contagious. And so one of the things that I try to do with AMSG is stay calm in troubling times. Everybody's going to have, no matter how big or small you are as a business owner, you're going to run into obstacles. It could be business partners that are trying to, steal your work or cut in on your business or whatever. People that not everybody out there can be trusted, as it's just the way it is. But I really wanted to talk to you about employee engagement, if that's okay. And
yeah, absolutely. I was about to transition us into it, because it's one thing to talk about like culture and employee engagement when you got like a 5-person team, but when you got 180 people and you're the CEO, I mean, you're far removed from like the trenches, or at least you're supposed to be. No, a lot of y'all are still white knuckling. It's okay. We've all been there. But what does why is that so important to you?
Well, one thing is, AMSG's kind of day of infamy was March 13th, Friday the 13th, 2020, when I got a call from our Marine Corps program manager, the guy who runs all of our Marine Corps stuff. And he said, "Hey, Jim, heads up. We just got a letter, a hard copy letter, and we're supposed to put it in our glove box. And we're going to use it to get through the checkpoints if martial law is declared." This was like when I realized, okay, this COVID thing is not going to go away in 2 weeks like everybody's telling us right now. And so a lot happened for us that changed the way we were operating. And it changed me personally on how I was going to be communicating with our people. So I initially just started sending an email every week to the company. And then I started doing a text to a different employee every week at the company. And what that opened up was a dialogue between the CEO and somebody 2 or 3 levels down in the organization, a one-on-one connection. And it just deepened that desire on my part to have this employee engagement grow. And one of the ways that it grew, I love this story, is I texted one of our team members, her name's Imani, and I always would ask, how are you doing? How's everything going in COVID? How's your family? Is there anything you need? Is there anything you need outside of work? And she texted back basically like, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm serious. And she said, well, I've always wanted to have AutoCAD on my computer, and it has nothing to do with being a finance analyst, but it was something that she's wanted and she's passionate about. And so we got her the AutoCAD software and we got her a class. And then a few months later, she sends me a video where she's actually created something in AutoCAD. And she was, super proud of what she had accomplished. And that really started another thing in my brain, which was, what if we could start a hobby program at AMSG? So on the one hand, employee engagement, everybody that's an owner of a business should be pushing to do employee engagement surveys. They should be checking in with their team members to find out how they're doing, what are we not doing or doing right from a leadership perspective. But also on the flip side of that is what's going on outside of work. What are they passionate about? What are your people passionate about? So that started we now have a formal hobby program where AMSG, we provide up to $1,000 a year to support our team members' hobbies outside of work. And we've got all kinds of people coming up with, hey, I want to, could I get $1,000 to buy some new gym equipment for my home? Will you pay for my gym membership? Yes. Will you pay for woodworking tools? Yes. Will you pay? I'm a farmer actually in Oklahoma in my spare time, and I want to buy some new equipment. Will you help me with that? Yes. So, pretty much the answer is always yes. It has to stay and fit within our core values, which are the 3 C's of leadership, which is competence. Do I know my job, or am I striving hard to learn it? Courage. Will I tell my boss or somebody else if they're screwed up, even if it costs me personally? And then compassion. Do I love my people? So that really, the compassion and the employee engagement are the 2 strongest things for me, because if you show it and you show people you love them, they will give it back to you 100 times over.
Well, clearly your team is inspired by you, because they're in the chat. You got Monty here. Tashi says you got wheels for her ATV. Just a lot of good stuff. And I try to tell people, man, for us as small business owners, I think the benefit of it is we don't have to be as corporate-y with things, right? Yeah. So you get to, it's fiction. Let's be honest. When you're building a business, it's straight fiction. Yeah. But you having the flexibility to buy a CAD program or get wheels on an ATV and stuff. Mm-hmm. People don't understand how far that stuff goes.
Yeah. Taish, I love Taish. That's awesome. I can't say enough. I can't say enough about it. I mean, we are really trying to, basically I had a Marine one time say to me, just make sure your mouth matches your feet and your feet match your mouth, and, walk the talk. So I guess what I'll say is I worked in several large companies that I won't name. And there was this we're going to have a formal mentor protege program.
Right.
And if you didn't sign up, you could get dinged on your performance review, which to me is just total BS. I mean, It has to come from the demonstrated affection that you have for your people. It can't be BS. It can't be fake. People will sniff out the fake in a heartbeat. So
I try to tell founders, like what you did with writing that email and sending out to people. People have no idea what you're thinking. They have no idea, what we're thinking in general, especially in the middle of a crisis.
Right.
And so getting ahead of it, sharing insights, inviting people into your world. See, that's when you start to enable people. And a lot of times I think people know they need to get these employee engagement programs started, and they get overwhelmed with like, well, where do I begin? Well, how about you start like sharing your message?
Right.
Just
Absolutely.
write a newsletter, like you said, maybe pick up the phone and call people. Just get started and then get better as you go along. And it doesn't matter if you have, 3 people, right? Because guess what? They're showing up to work every day. They're looking at you like the leader. So taking that time to ask those targeted questions. I even think about my time in the military, running a platoon every morning. You have platoon PT. You see that Lance Corporal. Hey, good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. And one day you walk by him and he doesn't say good morning. Instantly, I know there's something going wrong.
Right.
And you pull them aside. And I think with the digital world, where people spread out, the excuse of, we can't do employee engagement anymore is lazy, right? People still need to get, they still need to feel like they're heard and supported. It sounds like you guys have a great culture at your company. And I'm actually excited to learn more about it. I know another thing you want to talk about too is the importance of serving on volunteer boards in your community or at the national level. And one of the things I consistently see time and time again with veteran entrepreneurs is the social component, right? How so many of us use our businesses as a vehicle for social change. And so I'm curious to learn your lessons about and why you think it's important to volunteer with nonprofits.
Yeah, I can I just have one more second on the employee engagement though?
Absolutely.
And that is because there's something I forgot to mention, Mike, and I want to go on it one time. And that is, so government contractors in our industry, and just like some other industries out there, a lot of times you'll have team members that are on a contract and then the contract ends and they leave you because you can't keep them. They're billable, but you don't have other billable work. So what we're trying to create at AMSG is this culture that says, no matter where you go, it's like Jeff Bezos says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. What we want is people to say when they leave AMSG, if they have to, that they want to come back and that they say good things about us. And so taking that theme and taking the theme of like the hobby program outside of work is we're sending people to the Makindu School in Kenya, Africa this summer, and it's the first time we've ever done anything like this. And believe me, we are learning a lot about what it means to send employees to another continent, and the insurance that's involved, the flight arrangements, all the stuff that has to go on to make that happen. But it's making us a better company, and it's making the culture a better company. Another way that we're supporting our team members, one of them, Danae, she reached out recently and said, hey, I coach a double Dutch team called Jump DC. And so she said, would you all ever consider donating to that? And you just said social justice, right? So it's an all girls double Dutch team in Washington, DC. And I said, hell yeah. I mean, heck yeah, we'll support that. So we made a donation and they said, well, we want to have a showcase for you to show off our skills. And so a bunch of us from AMSG got to go, and we actually got to jump in and do double Dutch. And I mean, I honestly, at my age, like you said, I'm an old guy. I'm an old Naval Academy guy. Like, I never thought I would do something like that in my life. So, jumping over, speaking of, no pun intended, jumping over to the nonprofit space, my passion has been veterans and children, like helping both of those communities, like protecting our kids and making sure that veterans, the community of veterans, get what they need once they leave the military. Because I think you might agree, we spend a lot of money putting people into the military, but we don't always spend as much of the resources on the back end. I know there were very little when I came out in 1994. There's a lot more now. So I want to keep that going and try to help them. And one of the ways I do that is serve on the board of Armed Services Arts Partnership, or ASAP. And their mission is to build community among veterans in helping with storytelling, stand-up comedy, creative writing, all the visual and physical arts. And that, honestly, what the message I would give everybody on this, and somebody just put Travis Manion Foundation in, that was actually where I first got started in the veteran community was the TMF, was Travis Manion. And it was actually my former business partner, Mike. He went to an event and he came back and he's like, hey, this guy went to the Naval Academy. I mean, I'm a Marine, but you went to the school. And we started talking about it and I just checked it out and the rest is history. And I think my message is be open to those kinds of opportunities and try not to have that one part of your brain that says, I'm too busy. I can't possibly make time for that.
I was just about to ask you about that. So I run a nonprofit here in Newark, Ironbound Boxing. I know the struggle, right? How hard it is. And then I also have some for-profit ventures. And so people can be tuning in and they're like, Jim, I got a family. They're like, I'm white knuckling it with my business. Now you want me to serve on a nonprofit board? Like, how am I supposed to make time? Like, why do you think that's so important?
Yeah, I think on multiple reasons. First of all, it feeds your soul. And I know that might be kind of a cliche, but it actually will warm you up inside. It's like, it's this incredible thing to give and see the results of that giving. And then also you meet other people, you expand your network. And there's nothing like expanding your network to, it can help your business at the end of the day. That's not the reason I do it. But it for those who have this, like, I'm too busy, be thinking more broadly about why you should do it.
I also have this belief too. It's like we grew up, we had coaches, we had people in the community that we really looked up to, and you always assume that someone's going to replace them. Right. And then you look up and it's you, like you're the person. Yeah. And so the same thing when you think about these board seats, et cetera, right? Somebody's got to fill those roles. And I think it's the Travis Manion Foundation's slogan too. If not me, then who? If not me, then who? Absolutely. And veterans bring a lot of leadership. Yeah. Then you create these businesses that become these financial engines that allow us to do good, whether in the local community or with our employees and stuff, et cetera. And so I'm glad to hear someone at your level encourage people to, serve in these roles, especially when you think about pandemic happens. People are running their businesses with duct tape and bubble gum, just trying to keep these organizations alive. And when you think about the caliber of leadership we bring, the networks of impact that we bring, it's very important. Yeah. Yeah. One more thing. So the other thing, ASAP, and then the other organization that I'm big with, and we're trying to resuscitate this organization post-COVID. And that is an organization that up until about 3 weeks ago was called Students Helping Honduras. It's not a veteran organization. It's an organization, a chapter based of universities around the country that send college students down to Honduras, and they build schools and they provide teachers in the schools. It's now been rebranded to 1,000 schools because that's their goal, is to build. And it was actually started by a guy named Shin Fujiyama from Northern Virginia. Back in like 2004, he won the CNN award and, got it started, and it's been running ever since. So you don't have to be, if you're a veteran and you want to do something outside of the veteran community, you can do that too. I just happen to have the passion for, helping kids and helping veterans. Shout out to one of our LinkedIn guests. He says he's not a veteran, but son of a former Marine and Army vet. Any recommendations for organizations to join in Orlando, Florida? I don't know, but let me circle back on that one. But here's what I say. Just any organization you seek out, try to find a way to add value and make it easy for them too. Because I know running a nonprofit myself, people hit me up all the time about wanting to volunteer versus like coming to me with a plan like, hey, I want to volunteer. I already got this taken care of. You don't need to worry about that. Yada, yada, yada. So just something to think about. But I appreciate you asking. All right. Now we're going to transition to book recommendations. Jim, I know you got a couple books you want to recommend to our viewers today. What do we got? Okay, so for the first one, I have 3 books. I'll do it quick. The first one is called A CEO Only Does 3 Things. Whether you're a CEO or an aspiring CEO, a founder, or want to start a business someday, that's a great book. A CEO Only Does 3 Things. And then most people have heard of Make Your Bed. I think this is a great book. And then his newer one is The Hero Code. And if you just think about all of the characteristics that you'd like to see in your business: courage, humility, sacrifice, integrity, compassion, perseverance, duty, hope, humor, and forgiveness. Those are all great. All right. I'm a CEO. I need those 3 things. What are the 3 things I need to be doing? The 3 things are people, culture,
and financials. And quite honestly, I was sitting with a hot running private equity guy in New York City about 3 weeks ago, Midtown Manhattan. And I told him about this book and I said, it's people, it's culture, and it's financials. And he goes, I agree with the first two, but I don't know about the third.
He's crazy.
I was like, you're a private equity guy. You definitely should believe in the third. He goes, no, if you do the first two, the third will take care of itself. So,
I mean, I like to think that, but still, I just had a conversation this morning about cash flow, right? So businesses fail for two reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, no market need. And number two, they run out of cash. Yeah. So I like having financials in there.
Cash is king.
All right. My book recommendation for y'all is Design a Better Business. I have no idea who the author is. I forgot his name, but I'm a little book nerd. I'm always reading these little books on innovation and entrepreneurship. One, to make sure I can always add value to you all that are tuning in, connecting the dots, but also just better understanding some of the newer frameworks and thought leadership within the innovation space. So I've been listening to it on Audible. Great book. I'm about halfway through. A lot of the material I am familiar with, but it's always good to have that refresher. For some of you that are coming into the ecosystem, you hear terms like design thinking and innovation, and you're like, what the heck does that even mean? Right. So books like this can be a great starting point so that you can get a better understanding of what these terms are, from the business model canvas to, like you said, customer discovery. I know a lot of times we assume people have it all figured out, but I know when I first came in, I didn't even know what a venture was. I was at Stanford Ignite and they were talking to us about a venture. I was like, what the heck is a venture? And somebody was like, oh, that's a business.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Mike, one saved round here. Doing good better. How to be an effective board member of a nonprofit organization is a great little book. You can see it's not too thick. Y'all can take 20 minutes and skim through it and pick out some nuggets.
All right. So
doing good better.
I appreciate all these book recs. The CEOs, we're book nerds. It just comes with the territory, right? Got to stay alive. Part of staying alive is reading. So you can innovate. And especially when you're dealing with situations from a leadership perspective, it's always good to hear what other people think or problems and how other people have overcome them.
There's a metric out there that the average person reads 3 books a year. I know that's not my wife's situation. She's in a book club, so she reads 12 a year, and that is the average for a CEO. 12 books a year, 1 a month. It's not 2 a month. It's not 7 a month. It's not Bill Gates who reads 15 a month or whatever. It's just 1 a month. Just try to crank out 1 book. And it does. And I've read also, they don't all have to be about business. Pick some topics that are outside of your lane, so you get your brain exposed to other things too.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, give me a quick 20-second words of encouragement for our viewers that are tuning in as they continue on their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I would encourage you all, perseverance, stick to it. Stick to it. And one thing is that book, Good to Great, from years ago, it had the hedgehog theory. Yep. And it was like, find something and do it really well. Well, there's another chapter in that book called The Pivot. Don't be afraid to pivot. If you've just banged your head against that wall again and again and nothing is changing, you can't get that market. You can't create demand. Go look in another direction. Don't be afraid to do that either. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate having you on the show. For our viewers, all right, I need to make sure you're checking out the Transition Podcast. We've been creating a lot of amazing content. I just had, like I said, Brandon Shelton on the podcast to talk about the cost of doing business. I've had a bunch of other people from CEOcircle. This is your asset, because I'm in the New York City metro area. I know a lot of y'all aren't. And, to feel like you're supported out there, wherever you are, that's our way to reach you and also amplify stories from others in the bunker. So please check out the Transition Podcast on your favorite podcast hosting platform. I want to give a shout out to MetLife Foundation for sponsoring the podcast. Without them, we wouldn't be able to produce this amazing show. And I'm also producing a mini series, 5-episode mini series on finance for micropreneurs, early stage small business owners, etc. So got a lot of exciting content coming your way, but appreciate you all showing up today, tuning in to the bunker. Check out our programs. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your week.